Hello and welcome everybody to another puzzle challenge video with ChessUniversity.com. This is Ryan Murphy and I'm presenting our third puzzle of this week, and that means we're still in our beginner difficulty category, so for players rated under 1,000. And as always, I'll leave the link in the description of the YouTube video where you can check out the official post on ChessUniversity.com. That's where you should comment with your solution if you want reward points on your account there. This is our position here with white to play and win. And before I go into sort of the details of that, I want to quickly backtrack and give the solution very briefly from yesterday's puzzle. It's just a one-move solution. I mean, I guess you could put two moves. If you see the first move, you understand the concept. And the solution to this one was knight to d6, just delivering a fork. And no matter where the king goes on the next move, you can take on c8, and you have even more material. Plus probably the kingside pawns are going to fall, and these two pawns that are connected are going to promote. So white's completely winning after this move, and this was the last move of the game because black resigned. So that is how we got to the end of that previous game. And now we're going to look through the game that led into this critical position for our puzzle today. This was the game played between Tu and Wang on chess.com in one of their March online blitz tournaments. So let's see how this game developed. It began as an English c4, e5, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, and f5. Black's playing in a pretty ambitious way, trying to get... Usually the idea here is to get sort of a reversed Grand Prix attack kind of idea for black. So you can kind of think of this position as a reversed Sicilian, where white's pushed the c-pawn and black's pushed the e-pawn. And black is in general looking to play, it was like knight f6, maybe bishop b4, take c3, short castle, and eventually continue to push these pawns for a kingside attack. Depends slightly on how white develops, but that's the general scheme. Black can also play with g6 and bishop g7 as well. Okay, so d3 played by white, knight to f6, g3, pretty standard, bishop to b4, pinning the knight, bishop g2, and now d5 was played, which is probably a little bit early to get away with this. I think a more standard move in this position would be just to immediately chop and then play d6, keeping the structure together, and then looking into a castle and play for f4 in the future. That's usually how the attack will develop. d5 is a little bit loose to combine with f5 though. So white takes, which is fine. Besides this move, there's not too much else to consider. I mean, I guess you could always castle. Besides CD, though, there's not a lot of appealing options. There's this interesting move, queen a4, trying to pin the knight and take advantage of this pressure against e5. But honestly, CD seems like the most natural move. So takes, queen c2 protecting the knight. It was actually possible to gambit material here and just play castles right away, because the main point is that if takes, you're just okay as white giving up this pawn. It's not that relevant. You're going to have pressure against b7 in the long run. Also, this bishop has ideas of popping out to a3, which will make it difficult for black to castle, should that be delayed. So this is already pretty decent compensation, just in the form of the open lines. So queen c2 played instead, just holding on to the material, which is fine as well. Bishop to e6, black's trying to complete development, and both sides get to castle. Here, a very annoying move to deal with from black's perspective would have been knight to g5, which tries to basically wrest control over the light squares on the king side by removing this key defender, also trying to undermine the knight. Yeah, and if this were to be played, there's actually only one move here for black which keeps them in the game at all. If they were to just protect the bishop, right? So if they played a move like queen d6, then after knight takes e6, it's already losing material for black because this is hit. And you cannot take back because of bishop takes d5, which would result in a devastating pin. So knight g5 is very strong. The only move that even keeps black alive in this game is to play the counter tempo knight d4. And then after knight takes e6, you have to continue with this forced line where both sides take each other's queens. And then knight c3 is a move. Knight f6 is also a move. There's a bunch of moves that are possible, but white ends up being better because white's can have two bishops on a wide open board. In particular, this light square bishop's really strong. So that was black's best opportunity if white had played knight g5. But instead, the move a3 was played, and yeah, now black should be okay if they just drop the bishop back. Bishop e7 would be pretty safe here. And black enjoys good space because of these two pawns, and white hasn't really done anything drastic to take advantage of black potentially overextending themselves in the opening. So anyway, takes, queen f6, pretty typical, bishop to b2, knight d to e7 back, and at some point if you're going to play a move like bishop b2, you should be looking to play this move to open your bishop and try to exert pressure on the e5 pawn, which does happen in a couple moves, but that's the consistent way to play if you're going to put the bishop here. Otherwise, the bishop would be just as happy on this diagonal. So anyway, bishop e2, knight to e7, rook a to d1, f4, and now c4. So again, that's the main idea if you're going to put the bishop on b2. But you can already see that black's getting their counterplay. It's possible to take this pawn, but it's also very scary to do so. Usually opening your king like this will backfire, especially in a faster time control. So I totally understand not touching that pawn. g5 played by black, really going for it. But honestly, black doesn't need to continue pushing the g-pawn to make this attack worthwhile. You can build pressure with other ideas. So like, for example, just bringing the rook into the center is pretty decent here. And also, you can improve your pieces to continue building pressure in this attack. So moves like bishop g4, trying to mount some additional pressure on the f3 square, can sometimes be useful, followed up with ideas of knight d4 after the knight gets eliminated. So g5 is a bit loosening though, because now black's king is very exposed. d4 was played to open the center. That's very logical. When you're being attacked on the side of the board, you usually want to rip open the center. And now we can see that moving the g-pawn really did loosen up the long diagonals. This bishop's having quite a strong influence. So after bishop takes d4, which is a good move, queen to f7, saving the queen. White grabs this pawn on b7, which is perfectly fine. It was also pretty dangerous, by the way, to bring the bishop back and then have ideas of queen c3 in the future to establish that strong battery. But bishop e7 is fine, grabbing a free pawn. Bishop goes back to g2, knight to c6, challenging the bishop. But of course, the knight's not protected on c6 because that pawn has been eliminated, so that's a free guy. And now white's already completely winning, but there is still our key tactic that we want to get to that ends the game really quickly. So we'll fast forward a little bit here. Bishop c3, bishop to b3, going for the skewer of the queen and the rook. Queen d2, and now unfortunately, and black can stay in the game here, I guess, if they don't play their next move, if they just, I don't know, try to involve the rook from f8 maybe in the game somehow. Would have been a better way to keep fighting, but after grabbing the material, which is tempting, there's an immediate win for white. And though the game continued for another almost 10 moves, the result was never in question after this. So again, white to play and win. Hopefully you guys can solve it, and I'll see everyone tomorrow. Thank you for watching.